How's that for a 15-second introduction to this set? With the latest release of Dark Dwarf Heist, we got a new regular set based around lightning. And I swear, if you thought BGH mages and sewer dwarfs were already unmatched in how stupidly overpowered they are, like I do, you are in for a big surprise. The set is rather complex with the amount of text and abilities it has, but what you need to know is that it opens not one, but two new gameplay styles for Ranger that are basically equal or stronger than already existing playstyles. For starters, let's take a look at only the 2 and 3 part set bonuses. The 2 part set bonus gives a 2% lightning resistance ignore for each stack of Electrified on enemies. In itself, this isn't all that useful on maps, since your Blade Dance and Net already add up to 100% break, and you can stack it way past that with Blade Dance. The 10% lightning damage increase is multiplicative, so it has a bigger weight than a flat 10% damage boost. The buff is invisible and does not refresh if you hit a second Blade Dance, so the buff is not a permanent one, but it's close enough to be permanent. The 3-part set bonus is where the game changer kicks in. Your Hornet Cloud's damage gets a more than 2 times damage buff paired with a doubled attack rate. With Lightning Mastery, it will also apply Electrified on hit enemies, gradually reducing their resistances and gaining damage as a result of that. However, if the target is already 100% lightning broken, its damage will not increase any further, even though skills that deal lightning damage generally do scale with each stack. As a bonus, while the Hornet Cloud is active, you gain an additional 15% multiplicative lightning damage bonus to base, plus an additional 30% health with, once again, near permanent uptime. Something I find odd about this skill is that the base Hornet Cloud applies Electrified with every hit or every 1 second, whereas the transformed one applies Electrified every 2 hits or still every 1 second. To prove this, take a look at the damage ticks on this not fully broken target carefully. If you do, you can see that sometimes there are 2 consecutive equal hits, which show that Electrified is not being applied between them, but only after them. Now watch carefully how this build does at blood chests. You saw that right. By only using Hornet Cloud and some extra damage on the last sludge for good measure, you can get 5 chests solo Ingratiate easily with endgame stats. By all means, getting 5 chests here isn't impressive, but what is impressive is how consistent this is compared to alternative builds. With Dragan you have to stop at each sludge. With BGH and Sewer you can save some distance by attacking one of the sludges at a distance, but this is the only set where you can mount up and run between sludges. If I had better loadings, getting 5 chests soloing Whispering Veil would be a reality, but sadly I don't, so that's that, I guess. However, I feel the need to point out that the damage of Hornets is not that high and takes a while to fully kill a sludge. As a result, it is possible that if a mini-boss casts a shield around a sludge, it may survive the entire Hornet Cloud duration and occasionally cost your chest. To remedy this, just use Blade Dance or do a bit of damage around the sludges that can be surrounded by mini-bosses, which in the case of Grey Shade is only the rightmost one at the start. The Hornets are also impressive at clearing out smaller mobs in general. Take a look at this Q1 run for example. Since I don't care to check for loot from monsters, I can just run past them and let them perish behind me while I clear the path ahead. Since this only requires 3 out of the 4 set pieces, you can run any cloak with 50% mounting time reduction for maximum speed on maps. And that's not even all that the 3-part set bonus can do. A recent patch changed the interaction between Scattershot and Electrified stacks. And when I say changed, I mean buffed. After the change, every stack of Electrified causes Scattershot's damage to be multiplied by 5% per stack of Electrified instead of just being added. I will showcase a table with the percent skill damage Scattershot has with some amount of Electrified stacks before and after that change. Since stacks of Electrified are time dependent, I can't give you an estimate on how much stronger Scattershot is on average, but I can tell you it's viable. Now, it's not a perfect fit for a Hornet based build because it covers the same bases in being an area of effect skill rather than a single target damage skill, while also having a bunch of weaknesses such as an extreme concentration cost over time, reliance on marking, which is very limited in certain occasions without Hunting Trap, having a cooldown which limits its attack rate even with 5 joules of focus, but even then you can still make them work together. Especially considering that Hornet Cloud and Blade Dance increase the damage of any lightning skills, including Scatter, by a combined 1/4 of Scatter's starting damage. And all of that together is just half of the new set's capabilities. Just because the 3-part set bonus is that overwhelmingly good doesn't mean that 4 out of 4 is any worse. You know how Death Sweep is the best skill in terms of damage to essence cost for rangers in many cases? Take that 20 stack skill damage and watch as it goes into the thousands with the full set. First off, the starting damage of Death Sweep increases to 230%. Then, about 1 in 10 Death Sweeps can cause you to immediately cast a lightning damage Deadly Blow, which adds upwards of 1180% skill damage every 10 attacks or so. Since both Death Sweep and Deadly Blow do lightning damage, their damage increases by 5% multiplicatively with every lightning stack, up to 250% more at 50 stacks or 3.5 times the starting amount. Finally, the 10% Blade Dance damage and 15% Hornet Cloud damage also come in effect here, multiplying the final damage by a factor of 1.25. This is the damage of a single Death Sweep at 20 Blade Dance stacks and 50 Electrified stacks. Do you know what this means? Yeah, you can melt Fractured Planes much easier than people without this set. Since it requires some build up, I decided to compare it to Dragan and Sewer build against a Fractured Planes boss. The result will be skewed in favor of Lightning, but that's because of this season's 1.6 times damage multiplier to all Lightning skills, and there's nothing I can do to avoid it except for waiting for a season where the damage boost won't be applied to Poison, Lightning, or physical skills. Because the 4 out of 4 effect is Death Sweep oriented, this means that the set is locking in burst damage against one target. This weakness is similar to that of Sewer set, and is what makes Dragan have some use, specifically against breakable bosses. Otherwise, the new set has comparable, although usually better map coverage than Sewer, while also having the ability to 100% ignore unbreakable bosses faster than Sewer's 15 seconds wait time. This set has a lot more to offer than what I've shown so far, and I can't wait to share with you how far you can push the set, specifically in fractured planes. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.